All right, so we are customizing our battery from the template that I gave you. So there's a few things that you have to do first to kind of get it set up and ready to go so that you can customize it. So you can see in my layers panel that I have things very organized, and the way that I gave it to you was not like this at all. I kind of gave you just the battery like this. Okay, so I put it all in one folder for you, and I'm like, hey, here's your template. Okay, so what you really need to do is not keep it in this layer group, because that will hinder us later when we're bringing it into Photoshop. Because what Photoshop wants to work in is not layer groups, is just layers. Because remember, in Photoshop we just deal with layers. We can make groups out of our layers in Photoshop, so don't get me wrong, but the way that we want to animate in Photoshop, it likes its own specific layer for each item. Okay, so I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to show you how to pull it out of this layer group. Okay, so I have the battery layer. I twirl it open just so I can see all my layers. I labeled these level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Okay, as you can see, this is level 1, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I did is I went down to create a new layer. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to name it, okay, whatever I think layer level 1 is going to be. So I might already have it in mind what my level 1 thing is, which is copy. Okay, so that's me. You might think of it as something else. You know, maybe it's just the sun shining in the morning. Okay, so maybe you might want to put that text there. So I'm going to bring my level 1 over there. I'm just going to make a copy of it, or, you know, for you yourself, you could just kind of bring it over. It's not going to matter, and just drop it onto that new layer. So now you can see that it exists now. Okay, so that is sun shining. So I know that's going to be that layer. So I could do sun shining level 1. So I know where that is. Okay, if you don't need that information, don't put it. Okay, so now I'm going to think about, well, I want my text over that. So either I could do this, you know, in pairs, like I'm working on level 1, so I'm going to type on my level 1. So obviously I have my type tool activated, and then I'm going to create a new layer. It automatically just goes above the layer that you were just in. So I'm going to name this layer sunshine text. Okay, so that way I know that that's the text layer. So then I'm going to type on this layer. I already have my font kind of picked out. I like Babus, New, Nuevo, or New, whatever. So I'm going to write sun shining. Okay, and so I'm going to position it and, you know, set my color and all that kind of stuff the way that I want it. So I'm just going to pick white, and I can scale this and fit this however I want. If I want to stretch it, I can. Okay, just for now. So the way that I went about it is that my lower level ones were kind of smaller than my upper level ones, but you can keep it however you want. Okay, you can customize to your own interest. Okay, so that's sun shining. So I have them both kind of, you know, paired together here. Okay, so you can see where that is. Then this is. So this will help us when we're animating later, because maybe we don't want the word sun shining to come in and animate at the same time that my level is. Maybe I want it a little bit delayed. So that's why I'm kind of keeping them separate. Okay, there's no harm in doing that, right? So you're going to continue to do that with level 2, you know, make a new layer, you know, name it level 2, bring the level 2 over, and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, type whatever you're going to have in your level 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I put the positive at the top here. So you could do that. I did the plus sign at the top. I just made a plus sign with either my text tool, or I could have made it with a shape. Okay, and then that's my top level up here. Okay, so if you want to change your type here, I put the word positive charge. Maybe you want to put the goal that's up here, like, you know, what you're going for, whether it's like, you know, college or career, or just, I don't know, life, living in the pursuit of happiness. I don't know, whatever you want to do, just kind of either leave it as it is, because we're really just trying to learn how to animate. So we're not trying to make this into a big deal, right? Okay, so then once you're done with this, you're going to save it. You go File, Save. Obviously, we save as an Illustrator file, right? But we're also going to save as. And if you might want to think that you're saving as something, but you can see that in the drop-down menu for Save As, there's no Photoshop. So the reason for that is that Illustrator is vector-based and Photoshop is photo-based and pixel-based, right? It's made of pixels. It's a raster-based product. So we are going to export. So obviously anything that's a save as is going to be same as a vector. So we know that Photoshop is not same as a vector, so that's why we export. So we're going to export as. Okay, and then you see that Photoshop is a drop-down option along with other things. So we're going to pick Photoshop. Just had it. Man, okay. There we go. Okay, so I'm naming my file my first initial last name dash positive charge. Okay, so I already have it there. I'm putting it into a file and I'm going to export. Okay, so it's just asking me to replace it. I'm just going to say, I don't really want to replace it. I'm going to put someplace else so I don't save over things. So I'm going to say no. Okay, but for you, you will save it into your student project folder. So I don't have my student project folder here. So mean. Okay, so I'm going to put it in here. Export, right? So we're going to keep it in RGB. And we're going to keep it at, doesn't matter for this one, 150 line screen, but we want to make sure that it says right layers. Okay, so preserve text editability and maximum editability. Okay, so you want to make sure that that's that. If we had CMYK, notice that we don't have that option. So we're going to keep it in RGB. It's a GIF, so it's going to be on a computer. We're not going to be printing a GIF. Some people call it a GIF, but GIF in my mind is peanut butter. So it's a GIF, okay? So anyway, I'm going to make sure it's on right layers, and I'm going to click OK. And it's going to save this as a PDF, okay? So now I'm going to go into Photoshop. Okay, I already have it kind of going here, but we're just going to go to File, Open. And I'm going to go into my Photoshop document. So I'm going to go into my positive charge. So I already have it open. Let me just go into it again so you can see. Open. Okay. So you're seeing all my layers here because I already started it, but you will probably see where it's blank down here. You probably wouldn't see this whole window. So it kind of looked like that and all grayed out. Down here, you probably wouldn't even see the word timeline. So how to get the timeline up, which is going to be animating it for animation purposes, we're going to go to Window and Timeline. Okay, so yours might look like this. Now once you go to Window, Timeline, then you'll see that there's a timeline. Now because the layers are already done on mine, you know, that's why it's showing up in this way. But what you're going to see, I wish I could, let me see if I can close out of this. And just go into it again. Okay, so you're going to see a little box. Let me just go. See, it says create. When you have the timeline up, it's going to say create a video timeline. You have this drop-down menu. It might say create frame animation. We'll work on that another day. But go to create video timeline, and then you have to click on this button. Now, I don't really have any layers here except for my background layer on that one. So it's going to take all of your layers. Notice that mine just says layer 0 on this one because I have nothing there. It's similar to why I have lots of layers here. Is it all relates to the layers that were created in Illustrator, right? Okay, so now I have all my layers. I can see them. Okay, I can turn things on and off over here, but that's not going to really relate to here. So now everything's in the timeline. It's like a movie editing software now, in a sense. We could add, you know, MP4s, like some video in here if we wanted to for future us, or sometimes even some audio files and then have it play out. But that's not what we're doing today. So what you're doing is I could see that I have a background, so I labeled it BG for background. So that's going to stay constant. If I didn't want that, then, I would delete the layer, okay? But I want the black background because I want it to have that instead of just a transparency. So now you can see that everything is like spanning the whole length of this video timeline. And if I play it, you're going to see nothing happening up here. Okay, so it's looping forever, right? So what we want to do is make some things go in progression at different intervals. Okay, so I have my background, I have my outline layer, which you can see that white outline. I want to keep those static, but I want my coffee level layer to come in a little bit later. Okay, so as you can see, as you will see, okay. So when I scrub this, scrubbing is kind of like going from left to right or right to left, just kind of showing how it's turning on and off. Okay, because I'm going back and forth. And so I'm going to just set these at different steps, if you want to think about it that way. So I want them to enter in at different times. I want the word coffee to enter in a little bit later than just the level 1. Okay, so then I'm going to go to good vibes. That's my second level. I'm going to put it past here. I'm just going to make steps with this. So I'm trying to be repetitive in how I'm doing it. So the coffee text with the coffee level, I'm kind of putting in, shortly after, but then I'm giving a little bit of distance between the next one, the next level that's coming in, and you'll see how that's happening. Okay, so there's a little bit of delay. If I want a little bit more of a delay on when that text comes in, I just, pull it off to the side a little bit. Okay, and then the same thing, I just keep on going until I like how it looks. So again, I'm doing it in groups and kind of thinking about keeping it somewhat consistent, and then you'll see. Okay, so my puppers, my dogs, love them, so I want to make sure they get their 15 seconds of fame here. Say my family too. Okay, so I'm just going through this and I'm just making steps with this and trying to be mindful of things. Okay, so the text positive charge, right up here, I might want to keep that, there the whole time. If that's my goal, maybe I want to keep that there the whole time. Or do I want it to be revealed what this whole thing is later? Okay, so now when I play this, you'll see, now it's just going to loop, but in a longer loop. So I could either figure out where I want it to stop and then re-loop again. So then I would take the back end of this, because this shortens it. I want to shorten all of these, so it's not so much of a delay until it re-loops, okay? Which doesn't make sense. Loop is a continuous, right? So anyway, I'm just going to bring all these in, okay? And as you see, if I'm, when I'm doing it, some things stop at one point. So I want to all end at the same point. All right. So again, we don't want to stack them, step them back. We want them all to end at the same point, because then we're going to loop it, because we know a GIF is something that loops typically, right? At least a certain amount of times it does, maybe not forever, but we are going to do that. So we're going to make it loop forever into eternity. All right, so I'm finishing up with this. Of course, that outline and background, unless if I want them to disappear completely, but I don't think that would work with this very well. But we're still going to end them at the same point. Okay, so we're just ending them all at the same exact interval, and then you'll see when I scrub to the left and then play it, it will repeat. All right, so we're not done with it yet. I mean, we are done with it for now. So just make sure that in this little options bar over here, okay, so that we are selecting loop playback, okay, so that we can have it loop all the time. Okay, so that's one thing. And then the next thing and the last thing we're going to be doing is going to File, and we are going to Export, Save for Web Legacy. So this is saving it obviously for the web, for the purpose of the web to utilize. So what I would first do, especially if it's showing huge on my window here, I'm just going to scale this back so I can see everything. So another thing, and I don't know why it does this, it changes our width and height. Okay, so we don't necessarily want it this big. We didn't set it up this big, so we're just going to plug in our original numbers in there, which is 640 by 960. Okay, so now it's updated, and we're going to make sure that forever is listed here, or if we only wanted to do it a certain amount of times, then we would choose other. But we want forever and always. Okay, everything else should be good. Okay, and that is it. And then you go to save. And then you will get your name, obviously, of your file. It should be images only. I know that doesn't make sense. Just leave all the default stuff where it should be. So I'm going to put it into my folder, which is somewhere that I can never find, right? Okay. So I'm just going to put it on my desktop for now. Okay. All right. So I'm just naming mine very specific, so it would help. Now, when you're going into everything, don't mind all my tabs here, okay? So I'm going to go into Google Chrome, okay? And now when I go into my file, if I look at my files and I see my GIF file here, you can see the file type, right? Hopefully. That I could just drag this up into the browser, and there you go. You can see that it works. All right, so that is pretty much it. Right, so you guys are just making an animated GIF. So this is supposed to help you to understand the functions of the animation. Obviously, we're going to be animating the leaves from Miss Cooksey's assignment. So that's what we're going to be doing eventually. I just wanted to give you guys some practice. Thank you.